Okay, moving along, we're now on to chapter 3, which is information gathering. This is the most crucial and heart of what will make or break or make a good appraisal for yourself and for your client. When you're off an appraisal, not all situations will require an appraisal. If a client is wanting to sell a piece of equipment, he brings it up to you, that's when the conversation starts. There's no point in ever offering to give an appraisal on a piece of equipment if they don't ask. First of all, they might just need to sell a piece of equipment and turn it to cash. No reason to give an appraisal. They're just worried about getting it on auction, selling it, making money. We don't make any money off of giving an appraisal. It's an avenue to get a piece of equipment listed on a sale. I get it, but there's no reason to bring it up in the conversation unless it's been brought up to you. So if it's been brought up to you, then we walk down that avenue. If they don't bring it up, we don't bring it up. Next point, questions for information gathering. This is, to me, the most crucial part of being successful on giving an appraisal. More information, the better. Can you overload an information? Yes, you can. Can you underload an information? Yes, you can. Always year, make, model, hours or miles, and condition. Heart of every single appraisal. Those are the bases that you need in order to determine a value. If that's all if that's all the client gives you, can you give a number? Yes. Will it be the most accurate? No, but at least you can give them a number. Year, make, model, hours, mileage, and condition of the equipment. That's the blood. That's the heartbeat of information gathering. Questions where product knowledge comes in. Okay, this will you'll become more familiar with this over time. What I would say about this is type of questions to ask your client. For example, tires on a pickup are nearly as important as the type of tires that are on a combine. F-150 pickup tires are pretty much the same. They're 16, R16, R17 tires. If you forget to ask what type of tires are on a combine, are they single flotation tires on the front? Do they have duals? Did you completely forget to ask and the combine's got tracks on the front? That completely changes the appraisal value of the equipment, and that changes the comparables that you look up when you're looking them up online. If you look up a combine that's got duals, but the ones you're appraising has tracks on the front, the number that you give them will be completely irrelevant and won't matter because they won't be the same. Backing up a little bit, at the same time, that's where the photos come in handy. If you forgot to ask that question, see the photos, see the pictures, that thing's got tracks on the front. Forgot to ask that question, well, at least now you know. Everything in detail can affect the value of a piece of equipment. And like I said, you'll get more familiar with this as you go, especially when you find out the type of equipment it is. I could spend half an hour on giving you guys examples. The one that we have down here on your sheet. If you came into the office and told me, truck's a single axle, it's got a 4,000 gallon liquid tank on the back of it, I'd stop you right there because you can't have a 4,000 gallon tank on a single axle truck. Doesn't happen. I know that because I've been doing it a long time and you don't. But that's just the type of information that you'll learn the more you do it, but it's important to the appraisal process. That way you sound smarter when you're conveying the appraisal price to your client, and you'll sound smarter when you're with them on the phone, that you know the type of equipment that they have and you're knowledgeable about it. Yeah, like it says on here, with time and repetition will be your guide. I mean, the more you do this, the more equipment that you get, the more phone calls that you take, you'll get more familiar with the type of equipment. Whichever department you guys are in, you're in transportation department, you'll get really familiar with day cab conventional trucks, tandem axle, single axle, airlift tag axles, pusher axles, low boy trailers, how big's the well, flatbed trailers, sliding axle trailers is a tandem, triple. You guys will get familiar with all that. And the more that you do this, when you get done and you're not exactly sure what the guy had and you've asked all the questions you thought you had, internet's a powerful tool. Google it. If you didn't have any idea, what the piece was and you were afraid to say that, I have absolutely no problem, even, you know, after 15 years of doing this. I don't know every single piece of equipment that's out there. I don't. And I won't, you know, until I'm 75. I just won't. So I'm not afraid to ask the question. I mean, I'd rather give a guy an accurate appraisal and actually know what he's talking about than not asking him the questions and then calling him back and giving him an inaccurate number. That's why it's so important to ask questions. Location of the item. A lot of times this is a thing that gets lost, and it's actually pretty important. Where the item is located can affect the value of the piece of equipment. They don't like it, but it's just the way it is. There's a lot more wide open fields in South Dakota and Minnesota than there is down in Missouri in the hills. So if a guy's got a 60-foot cultivator disc, unfortunately, it'll be worth a lot more in South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota than it would in the hills of Missouri. So asking them where the piece of equipment's from also affects the value. You know, just like combines. If you have a rice picking combine and you're trying to sell it in Minnesota, it's not worth very much. If you're trying to sell it down in Texas and Louisiana, it's worth a little much. Why? Or it's worth a little bit more. Why? Because that's where they have that crop. That's where it's at. So location of equipment is important. Transportation equipment from north to south are going to be valued less because of the heat from the south. Okay, yeah, that's self-explanatory. Make sure that the information that you're receiving is correct. And this is where getting VIN numbers and hours on equipment are important, and double checking at the end of your conversation with the client. Now, I just want to make sure you said this, because if he tells you the piece is a 2005 and you get the VIN number and you look at that VIN number and you realize the piece is a 2002, according to the VIN, it's 3 years older than what he had, changes the value. If you don't know, there's a lot of resources out there to determine the year. You can use guys in the office. You can use us sales guys if you don't know a year. You can use, if it's on farm equipment, you can use dealers' parts departments. I mean, you can call and say, you know, I got a John Deere 9770 tractor or a combine. I'm not sure if it's a 2009, 2010. I'm doing an appraisal for a gentleman. We're back and forth on the year. If I give you the VIN, can you tell me what year the combine is? More often than not, they'll accommodate you. But don't just assume the client knows what year of equipment he has. It's really surprising to me how often guys don't know exactly what they have. Just because they bought in 2015, they think it's a 2015 model, but it was sitting on the lot for a year, so it's actually a 14. So just double check your information. Like I said, circle up at the end of the call. Make sure. Now, Bill, I want to make sure I have that right. You said it was a 2009 9770. It's, you know, 4-wheel drive, you know, extend auger, you know, all that stuff. It's always good at the end of the call to recap, because if you write as fast as I do, sometimes you might not be able to read your own handwriting. Circle back, get the information right, helps you be more successful on your appraisal. And that pretty much wraps up chapter 3.